Going outside is a big one. He loves to be outside. He loves to look at trees and to feel the fresh air.
He could be worked up about something, he goes outside, instantly there's like a calm that comes over him.
He likes sounds a lot, loud sounds and clapping and snapping and clicking.
All around our house are Mardi Gras beads, so we call him our little party animal because he loves it when you bang them on mirrors and toys and Mylar balloons that kind of reflect light. He loves like the crunchy sound, so anything loud and bright and shiny.
He loves being held. He loves all of his family members in his life who hold him and help take care of him.
Anytime he can be held and snuggled, that's just what he wants. He likes to be close to people.
One of our therapists, she looked at Nikki and she said, "I think Theo is a really nice person." And that's just not a way we've ever thought of Theo. I mean, we think he's nice, obviously, but we don't really think, if she would have said, "Theo's a nice baby," or "a nice young boy," then yeah, that would have been normal. Like, yeah, of course he is. But to call him a nice person kind of helped us view him in a way that we hadn't before.
Theo is light. He's pure 100% good and kind, and will never hurt anyone and never cause, I don't know. I think that's like the coolest part about him is he's just pure goodness.
When Theo was born, I think people knew right away that something was a little off because he was breathing really fast. So we got to see him for maybe 2 minutes when he was born, and then they took him away and they took him to the NICU. And while we were there, we a couple different times he stopped breathing and turned purple.
That was definitely like some intense moments of like realizing like, oh my gosh, like seeing your child struggle just to breathe, or that like worry of this person truly he might not make it.
His breathing got to normal, and then we thought, okay, this is great, and now we're gonna get to go home and everything's gonna finally get normal. But then right before we left, somebody noticed that he was doing these weird things with his hands, and they called in a physical therapist, and she wasn't overly concerned, but she said, yeah, his tone is a little bit low.
It was always a little unclear why he was breathing fast, like why his tone was low. That's the first time I even heard that you can have low tone, which is, the more formal name is hypotonia.
Which means that his muscles don't automatically kind of tighten like they're supposed to in most people. So that kind of stayed a mystery even after we went home. So going home was terrifying. We still didn't really know at all what was going on. He had been hooked up to these monitors for 5 days, so we knew right away we had an alarm if he stopped breathing again, but we didn't have that anymore. So sleeping was like not gonna happen, and we were waking up constantly and checking on him.
You know, when you're just trying to process what's going on with your baby and that you have a baby and that you're a parent, but this isn't how it's supposed to go. And I think for that first few chapters, that was something, it's hard when your expectations are just so flipped around.
And then it was just this unknown. Is something wrong? Is he gonna be fine? Is this just a weird start?
I think when you're just in that state of such intense like worry and anxiety, it just sometimes feels like if you can figure it out, then maybe that will somehow lessen that like fear, which it doesn't.
We're Googling constantly. I mean, we must have Googled for hours a day reading about hypotonia.
Nothing like overtly concerning about his health, but kind of just little things that were like just a little bit concerning led us to a few different specialists, but then it kind of come back as nothing.
The big moment to me where I realized it was not going to suddenly turn normal, our pediatrician called us and was like, why don't you guys come in, bring Theo, and we can talk about figuring out why he is the way he is. And I remember those words, and I remember being really angry, like, what do you mean the way he is?
Then we started our diagnostic odyssey, is what a lot of families call it, and that's basically just running some like initial genetic panels to see if anything pops back.
It was an incredibly difficult 6 months or a year.
We saw a neurologist, and she suspected that his visual inattentiveness, because he could kind of track light, but it just didn't seem like he was really seeing. And she theorized that it could be seizures. So we were kind of like, well, he's there's no signs he's having seizures. So we did a 1-hour EEG. And then I think a day or two later, a resident called us and she said, I'm looking this over. I think you need to come into the epilepsy department. He's having quite a bit of subclinical seizures. And that's the first time Theo was admitted to the hospital. Even though we had been through a lot in 6 months, I think the fact, like, I remember Turner was doing something, my mom wasn't in the room, it was just Theo, the nurse, and I just started sobbing because it was just I was overcome with disbelief and even just heartache that here's my tiny baby and we're getting admitted to the hospital. From that visit, we learned about his subclinical seizures. I remember the doctor who told us, and Turner like put it perfectly and just said, you know, it speaks to his quality, the way he can tell you really, really hard news in a way that makes you feel hopeful. And I think that that's been true. Just not that he, like, this doctor that we've truly never seen since, like, but I think that that's been something that we've just kind of tried to hold on to, where it's like you can choose that.
In a way, I think it's grief because you have your beautiful son that you wanted and you knew you were going to get, but it's nothing like what you thought you were going to have. And your hope that everything's going to turn out normal kind of slowly diminishes, but your ability to be okay with that also slowly rises.
He was around 10 months old and we did the whole exome sequence, which is basically the kind of Taj Mahal of genetic testing in terms of what we know so far about genetic DNA and genetic code. And then we get a call in March with our results. So I'm pumping and feeding Theo and Turner's sleeping, and I call her and she explains that he has a condition called TBCK syndrome, or he has a mutation in the TBCK gene.
It was a very newly discovered disease, only discovered a few years before he was born.
To the date of March 2018 when we got diagnosis, there were about 40 or 50 cases detected worldwide. So it's like super rare. So that's the first time that I really even became versed in the idea of like a rare disease in that kind of capacity.
It has a few main features, pretty profound intellectual and physical disability. Somebody with TBCK is very unlikely to ever talk or walk or even sit up or feed themselves or anything. It usually comes with epilepsy. The TBCK community didn't really exist at the time we got our diagnosis. There were other cases, but I don't think they were connected at all. I don't think anyone really knew about each other.
I went on Facebook because, you know, I had been on some Facebook support groups. One little girl popped up that said like Sophia's TBCK journey, but nothing else. So I was just like, well, I'm gonna just start a parent support group.
That's been huge, just to share experiences and help each other in that way.
More and more as I was trying to like understand, how are we gonna give Theo the best life? How are we gonna give all Theo's friends, we call them, you know, the best life? And I think it's to really understand TBCK. I mean, there's just so much that we don't know about the condition.
There are 2 people doing research on TBCK at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. So we went out there to meet them.
One of our conversations was, what can families do? And they said a lot of families start foundations in order to help like advance research through funding in that way. So we basically left really excited about what that might look like. That was kind of the genesis of our foundation, the TBCK Foundation.
The main goal of the foundation is to raise money for research and also to bring families together to create a community.
We planned like a race for rare kids in Michigan.
TBCK Foundation, we're a rare disease foundation, but part of our work is really advocacy for inclusion and accessibility and just making all kids feel included. So when
you have a child with a rare disease, you don't know anybody else with a child with that disease. That's how it works. So to have this foundation that people can Google and find and come together and actually be able to talk about what's going on, that didn't exist when Theo was born, and now it does. So that's already something that we're proud of.
In the rare disease world, the zebra is the symbol, because in medical school, doctors are trained to look for horses. They say, we all want to find the zebra because it seems exciting, but really you should approach like any medical protocol like it's a horse. Like, these are the things to look for. But then when you have a zebra and you know it's a zebra, and then with Theo, he even has 2 other variants in addition to TBCK that we think contribute to some of his behaviors and some of his kind of just experience of the world. So we call him like a multicolored zebra because he's super rare, and that, and like a lot of other kids too, even within the TBCK family, have some other variants too. So I think for diagnosis, it's just, you want so badly to kind of be like, this is what you have, this is the treatment, this is what you need to do. And it's just so often than not, it's like you're just stuck at that first like phase of just maybe even trying to get researchers to look into your condition. Or for us, we have researchers, but there's no, now it's like finding the funding to get that research going. And that's just even for like a potential treatment, let alone like any kind of like cure or like gene therapy, which is far removed. And even to step aside and hear myself say that is like, my background is not in science. So it's just, also you just have to, there's no option but to like learn about it in order to feel like you're effectively like navigating it for yourself and for your kid.
To describe the journey of having a special needs child is, I think in a way it's impossible. I mean, looking back at myself, I could have never even imagined what it was like. It's so challenging and also so rewarding, and I think it's just brought so many more lows and highs to my life that I never would have had before.
Sometimes I feel like the word journey is overused, but it truly just seems like the only word that can really capture what our life has been for the last 2.5 years as we've kind of made our way through lots of questions, a diagnosis, but there are like so many beautiful things that come out of it too that you never even, initially I would kind of push away like, yeah, but if this wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't have, but I think slowly as you kind of evolve and accept that more wholeheartedly, you see, you know, Theo's connected me with people and has opened my heart to people that, you know, otherwise I just don't think life would have probably routed me that direction. And I think that, you know, that's part of the things I should probably say when I describe Theo is, you know, he's like a little spiritual advisor. Like he just, in his own way, he really just brings all this light and goodness. And I think that that's just hard to put words to, but it gives our life so much beauty.